And we are live. Hello. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Geek Battle show here on the Extreme Improv Extremes YouTube channel. So, today we're going to discuss all of the latest things happening in the world of geeky stuff. We're going to review some things. We're going to play a game or two, and we're going to have a jolly old time. Marty, say hello to the people.
Hello, everybody. This is Marty, back from my hiatus of being sick and such. I completely lost my voice, which has never, ever happened to me before. And it happened right during the championship, which sucked because we all know I would have won. But, you know, congrats to Rob Kirby anyway. But I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, well, happy that that you're back. And well, actually, you're still a bit quiet, but for different reasons. This is a technical thing.
Wish I knew what to do.
I have no idea. Gerald, say hello to the people.
Hello, everybody. And I think it's a really awesome geek fact. We'll see if everybody else agrees. But the poem that is known as the Ringverse, specifically 4 lines of it that say 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, and 1 for Dark Lord in his dark throne. If you take those numbers backward, that's the year that Tolkien died, 1973.
Whoa, that feels conspiratorial. Or did he know?
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely worth a bonus point there. Marty, did you give a fact?
I did not.
Would you like to?
How long have I been doing this show? And I can't ever remember that we're supposed to do a damn geek fact at the very beginning.
Don't worry. Look, there hasn't been a show for a couple of weeks because of like the championship and stuff. Wait a minute. Trouble is joining us.
There he is.
Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. We were just saying that there hasn't been a show for a couple of weeks. We've all forgotten to come up with geek facts. But Nick, you are here. Say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. How are you? And my geek fact of the week is Loki is back, and it is awesome.
Wow. Okay, we're jumping straight into it. I was going to say I found Loki really average.
I find a lot of things you do average as well, but Loki, however, is awesome.
No, like okay, that's awesome if you're enjoying Loki. Genuinely, we'll get into it. But
my geek fact could be that I don't give 2 shits about seeing the new Captain Marvel movie.
I'm gonna agree with you know what? On another show I give ducks on pop culture stuff. I give 0 ducks about the new Captain Marvel movie.
The only duck I give about the new Captain Marvel movie is Flirt Kittens.
Well, also,
aside from that, I don't.
Did I hear that Dazzler was going to be in the new Marvel movie, in the new X-Men?
Who?
I have no idea.
Oh no, Dazzler's going to be in the new Daredevil.
I think that's right.
Who?
Dazzler.
Yeah, a good old Dazzler. I love a good.
You don't know Dazzler?
Disco 70s Marvel.
You know what Dazzler's superpower is? Which I found this out.
Does he dazzle people?
When I was having a conversation with my brother, she is a disco queen from the 70s, and she can create her own light show.
Yep.
She can control lights with her mind. She can talk with a mind taker lights. It's fucking outstanding.
She's a mutant. So
yeah. Also, I want to point out that I've had a shit ton of coffee today, so I may be a little bit more hyper than usual.
No.
Okay, so this is Dazzler, guys. So
yes, that is
Dazzler.
She also,
I think that looks great.
Her comic book appearances is on roller skates for the entire book.
Wow. Yeah, I don't really have many comments about that. But coming back to why Loki season 2 is really bad, it's just like, okay, so the first season, you think you've got Loki, he's got like these big horns, you know, he does magic and all that, and now he's literally just dressed like he's working in an office. And everything about the TVA looks like an office. It's like you've got like the God of Mischief and the whole thing takes place in an office block. Then they got the guy from the other multiverse movie that came out, and he's dressed as a janitor. And then they've got Kang the Conqueror, who they just wiped him out again. And it's like, how is this guy ever meant to be the main villain when you're killing him more than you kill Kenny?
First of all, it was those bastards that killed Kenny. It was not anyone from Marvel that killed Kenny. That is my stance on the subject of Kenny.
Well, okay, but those bastards from Marvel did kill Iron Man in the animated show over and over again in every episode. And now they're doing it to Kang.
I don't care. I don't give a crap about the new Loki either.
It's the wonders and miracle of the multiverse, isn't it fun?
I'm telling you, Marvel has just screwed the pooch so much in the past couple of years that I really don't give a crap anymore.
I've got to, because I produce a show called Geek Battle.
I know. But my wife was like, "You want to watch Loki?" And I'm like, "No, I really don't."
I'm hoping, like, I've seen, I think, 4 episodes of it now, and I don't know if it's 6.
You've seen 4 of them. You've seen one more episode than I have, and I really enjoy it.
Oh, okay.
I like the first one. I'll check it out then. I'll check it out.
You like the first season, you mean?
Yeah, the first season.
Yeah, the first season was all right. Well, it was all right. It wasn't great, but it was all right. But they were doing stuff. Like, again, it was Loki and, look, Owen Wilson. It's like Loki and Owen Wilson. That is like the new Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller, or the new Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan. It's like Owen Wilson is good in a tag team.
Yep.
And like Loki, it would make sense, except for they're just like in office suits and do office things.
It was the Office, not the British Office, which we all know is the best office, but it was the Office with Loki filling the Jim position, and Owen Wilson filling the Dwight position.
Truthfully, I don't like either version of The Office that much.
Have you seen the version from India?
No, I've not. I think I should check it out.
The best version so far.
I'm going to check this out.
The Diversity Day episode is so good.
I think Nick has won Geek of the Week already.
The Office Indian version. Oh my god! Like, I don't know how. I may have to put up the shield. There is a trailer for this. Okay, hang on 1 second. Oh, whoa! Playing music. What do you think you're doing, internet? Right. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. Are we not even on the right? Yeah, it's on Geek Battle. Where is? I don't know if I can change this. It's going to suddenly change the screen. So now it goes pink. Now it's going to go to Geek Battle. Let's bring up the force field. Let's see. Force field up. And, it's ended already. That was really quick for a trailer. So, okay. It looks like The Office.
What does the force field do?
The force field, I put it across the screen because that way it disrupts. It's like a fingerprint. So it just means that it can't copyright strike me until I announce it out loud that this is my plan. But yeah, okay, that looks something like what I'd expect from The Office. Yeah, the force field, it means that if it like how you get copyright strikes for music.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've just played things in silent, and then you still get copyright strike because it just recognizes like the pattern on screen of the video. But by putting the force field across the screen, it just disrupts it enough so that we can still vaguely see it. But also means that, I've beaten YouTube. I've beaten the system.
No.
That's the idea there.
The system will beat you eventually.
I know it will. Like all this AI and stuff like that, it's getting scary, guys.
It's coming for us.
Okay, so guys, have you
saying
guys...
that Terminator is real, is what you're telling me.
Well, like the weird thing, what year was the first Terminator, like in the future? It was like 2028, right? And we're almost there. Like this AI stuff is getting insane.
I saw a post of mine from a couple of years ago, came back on my Facebook profile, like a memory, that Back to the Future took place one day ago. It was on 2015.
Yeah.
October 15, 2015.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my post for October 16, 2015 was, wow, Back to the Future happened yesterday.
Yeah, well, Back to the Future Part 2. And when you think about Back to the Future Part 2, like there was the 3D shark, and even though we didn't have it like that, we did have like 3D movies became a thing. We had like when there was like his boss, and it was like, McFly, you're fired. Right? We then have like Zoom and video calls and stuff like this and Skype. It actually got quite a lot of things accurate. Not like exactly how they're done, but Back to the Future 2 was pretty good.
This could probably easily be a complete show, but it made me think of movies that are set in the future that we are already past the date now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just looking that up, and I just unfortunately,
so, Time Bandits for sure. Johnny Mnemonic most likely. What Back to the Future, which we just discussed. What else?
Well, like Blade Runner.
What year is Blade Runner set in?
2019.
Wow. I've definitely told this story about a half a dozen times before, and we may have even found out what it was. But there was a cartoon I remember seeing like when I was a kid, and this was probably in the mid-90s, but it was like in the year 1994, and it looked like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and clearly it's been made in the 70s.
Yeah.
It's like this is what they thought. Like everyone's just like ripped muscles, and like they look like Beast Man, and they're wearing loincloths, and it was like an post-apocalyptic world.
Well, and the only other one I thought of was like Escape from New York. 1997 is the future date.
That's a great.
Where New York is like a prison and it's full of. Oh wait, that did come true.
Yeah. What year is the Matrix set in? Is that 100 years in the future?
Oh, let me find out.
It says 1999, so it was set in the same year it was done.
Is it?
Really?
Wait a second.
Well, that's what Bard is telling me.
Huh.
Who is telling you?
Google Bard.
Bard?
Mm-hmm. iRobot was set in 2035.
iRobot has it?
Okay, hang on. So believed by the Resistance to be around 2199.
Yeah.
So they're 100 years. I'm going to be 114 before I catch up to the Matrix.
I'm going to be dead. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So.
No, but that is fascinating. Like, it's fascinating to see how we have predicted. Like, everyone always says about like 1984, and how much that is correct. Big Brother is watching and stuff like this. But there's a load of things where we've predicted the future in various ways in films, or even if things are set in contemporary times in the film. Like when you watch Outbreak, and then when it got to like 2020, you were like, shit, this like Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman film was correct or whatever. It
was only a handful of years off.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, and I never watched it because I don't know, I just didn't want to watch it. But there was also an Outbreak movie that Steven Soderbergh made that apparently was super realistic and very scary as well.
Oh wait, was that Contagion?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I saw that at the cinema and I thought it was trash. But then I then saw it during the pandemic and I was like, they knew, I was just like, this is nonsense. This is boring. This is nothing like Outbreak. There wasn't any like helicopter chases and shit.
Something really funny happened in board games was the game of the year for 2018 and 2019 was a game called Pandemic.
Yeah, I played it.
And then it's a fantastic board game. I highly recommend it. Oh wait, but then 2020 happened, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, is there anything else people have seen that they want to talk about, or we can do some other things? There's a bunch of news stories that I've got.
Matthew Perry died.
Yeah, okay, so super sad one there. Matthew Perry, most famous playing Chandler Bing in
Chandler Bing. Could I
in
be any more Matthew Perry?
yeah. So yeah, he passed away. That was super sad to hear that. Anything any of you guys want to say about any of that? It's obviously very sad.
No.
Well,
No, doesn't look like it, Dave.
I was going to say,
well,
outside of Friends, the movie I remember him from that I really liked him in, and I think was a good movie in general, is I think The Whole Nine Yards.
I
That's
thought you were
right.
going to say Three to Tango, which I thought was really good. Right,
I've not seen that one.
Yeah,
that's really good. They'd never make it nowadays, but it was really good.
Okay.
The Whole 9 Yards was a good movie.
The follow-up, the
Whole
10 yards, not so much. But Bruce Willis was in The Whole Nine Yards. Matthew Perry, Amanda Peet, and Natasha Henstridge. Those were the main characters or actors and actresses in it. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I think it was probably late 90s, early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah. No,
I think
go ahead, Marty.
I think the only thing I've seen recently that was new was we watched the new miniseries on Netflix that Mike Flanagan directed called "The Fall of the House of Usher," and we enjoyed it. It was, I don't think it's Flanagan's best work, but it was enjoyable.
What is that on? What platform's that on?
Netflix.
Okay, I think I've seen it on there, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, it just sort of takes the story of Usher, but then each episode kind of also incorporates another story by Edgar Allan Poe, and just kind of ties them all in. They're just it's
That
all
sounds really cool,
interwoven
actually.
and stuff. So
That sounds super cool.
it's interesting. I still think his best work for me is Midnight Mass, which we're actually rewatching it right now, and I still think it's very, very good.
Was that sounds like from within the last year or two?
2 years. It came out.
What was the basic plot of that? There was like dead birds on a beach or something, right?
Dead cats.
Dead cats. Yeah, and what was going on with them? Were they replaced with people or something like this?
I'll just tell you this. It involves religion and vampirism.
That's it. Yeah. No, I saw that. I liked that show a lot.
Yeah. So, other than that, I haven't really seen anything else new. So I'm willing to talk about whatever anybody else wants to talk about.
Well, I've seen a couple of things. I've been watching Loki, and like I said, like it's ticking along, and obviously this season feels like it's setting up Kang, but I don't know, it's just like they're not making Kang seem this huge threat, and so it's ticking along. The other thing I saw was, I know it's obvious that they've re-released this just because they don't have anything new, but they put out for Halloween Werewolf by Night in color, or Werewolf at Night in color. And I'll be honest, I preferred it in color to when I watched it in black and white.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. I really enjoyed the black and white one last year when they did it.
It didn't make it feel like a old Universal Pictures film when I watched it in black and white.
Gotcha.
I enjoyed seeing it a second time just because I mostly remembered the story, and my expectations of it were a bit different compared to like going in. But the thing that still really struck me is how, I believe, unless it's like they said that this absolutely isn't anything to do with the MCU, that it feels so like disconnected from the world of the MCU. Like one of the things which I think has been a problem, that especially with the Eternals, but with a few of these things, is the idea that, well, there's all these vampire hunters or monster hunters, and they've been around for, one of them says like, oh, this is my 30th season. It's like, so you were hunting monsters before Iron Man did Iron Man stuff, and before Captain America and any of these things happened. And the Eternals, obviously, it's like, yeah, they just sat by and watched all of the alien invasions and all that. And I think that they have got a problem where they built up that things didn't start with Iron Man, or I suppose start with Captain America, being in World War II. And that they're saying that there's always been stuff like this. And I feel like that's kind of cheapening a lot of the earlier stories that they told, which gave the sense that there wasn't anything until Iron Man. But,
Well, go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say I haven't watched the Eternals, and like the ads and stuff I had seen for it, it just didn't seem very engaging. And I don't know how they tried to, or how they're going to supposedly relate it in, but I think it's a bunch of characters that are fairly fringe, relatively speaking, to like the masses. So I mean, it does have a they do have a following, but I think it's more niche than wide scope.
Well, the whole I've read the original Eternals comic book. It's not the best work out there, but what it does have is it has Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. And Jack Kirby, in his later years, which these kind of were, it was very quirky and very weird, and there was a certain charm to that, and we really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And they stripped every bit of that out of the movie. Thor, what was it? The one that the first one that Taika directed. Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok had more Jack Kirby-ness to it than the Eternals did, and they made it sad and dark, and it was almost like watching a DC movie instead of a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So, but I was going to say about Werewolf by Night. Marvel in the 70s, they created this entire supernatural universe where they have their own version of Dracula, their own version of the werewolf, Frankenstein, the Mummy, all of those guys. They made comic books for all of them. The two most successful ones were Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night. Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't like Werewolf by Night, the show, was because they didn't honor anything from the comics at all. The guy's name was right. He walks in, he says, "I'm Jack Russell," but he's Spanish. I'm like, Jack Russell is not a Spanish name. What the hell are y'all doing? You dumb idiots. And so they just, and then I didn't like the Wolfman makeup. They should have made him look more like he did in the comics. And I don't know what they were doing.
I think they were trying to make it look like Lon Chaney Jr. Was.
Well, it didn't even look. To me, it looked more like Werewolf of London with Henry Hall, which predates
Werewolf by Night. Yeah.
Wolfman. And it's fine, but I'm not a big fan of that look.
The one thing I really liked of it was Man-Thing, who's just a weird character,
Was that the big tentacle thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I didn't understand what the hell that was at all last year or when I watched it this week. I was just like, so there's this big weird creature thing, and I was like, okay, so they had Korg or whatever it was in Thor, and now they just want some weird creature in this. It's like, where did that come from? Where how does this fit into the universe that's like the same one that Captain America fits into?
Yeah, it's sort of like what Marty was talking about, where it's more of this like horror arena as opposed to like superhero arena, because for the most part, you did have some crossover later on, but the werewolf from Werewolf by Night was pretty much from that horror genre. Or part of Marvel, and then even Moon Knight originally had come from there as well, and then later on, especially like in the 80s and 90s, they incorporated some of those characters over and blended them into the more like mainstream superhero universe. Yeah. But Man-Thing is just a weird character overall, but to me, it was sort of neat to see it, and I I didn't know much of like the story about Wolfman and the Werewolf at Night stuff. So I, again, for what it was as a standalone thing, I enjoyed it. It wasn't the greatest thing ever, but it wasn't horrible either. And I know, obviously if you have more of that perspective and background, it takes you in a different direction, which I think we had touched on with some of the anime and manga things that, again, as not being a super major manga and anime fan, I enjoyed, but definitely diverged from what those stories were.
I almost wish that they would. I don't know how they would explain it, but I almost wish they'd get Chris Evans back and do some adventures of Captain America during World War II before, like, let's pretend that he had some other adventures, kind of scattered around in there before the whole Red Skull thing happened and he crashed in the plane.
The only difficulty with that is, like, I think, and this is going to tie into something I'm going to speak about in a bit, but if you do something like that, it's like it's completely throwaway. Like, how's it? It's like when they did the Black Widow film. It's like it doesn't advance the story. It's cool to see like a missing episode of something, but it doesn't do anything new. It has to be something that's missable, surely.
But they could. I mean, they really could do something with it though, because in the comics, Captain America during World War II was on a super team with Namor.
With Namor and with Wolverine.
Well, yeah, that came later. This is this. I'm talking about the Invaders.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
The Invaders were before the Holly Commandos.
Where it was Captain America, Namor, the original Human Torch, and the original Human Torch's sidekick, Toro, and then there were some other characters that kind of came and went, but that was kind of like the core group. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to get Marvel back on track, to be perfectly honest with you. I just really don't know.
Like, my suspicion of what they need to do is to have an Avengers film, because everything has been all over the place without any sense of it building to anything. And there's so many, like, the ironic thing is when they show like their sacred timeline and how it spews out, that is genuinely like what their films have done. There's everything that happened with Spider-Man, and what's going on with Spider-Man now, no one knows. What's going on with the Earth, the hand coming out of the Earth, like from the Eternals, no one knows. We just said, like, Werewolf by Night, there's like a bloodstone and some girls got it, and what does that mean? Kingpin was there, and what's happening with Hawkeye? And Shang-Chi, has he ever met any of the Avengers? Like, by the time they all have to team up together, none of them are going to even know who each other are. It'll have She-Hulk turning up, and it'll be like, oh, so and Hulk will be there, and it'll be like, this is my cousin She-Hulk. Meet Captain America. It's like, you've both existed for the last 8 years, but you've never met before.
I think it really goes back to, again, they need to go back to quality versus quantity. And the last 2 years, maybe almost 3 years, they definitely went for, let's cram as much stuff out there as we can get out there. And some of it was pretty bad.
What I would like for them to do, and I know it's not going to happen, is that they reboot like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, like the Netflix Marvel Universe, and they'll have those on like city state level, and then they have like the Avengers and all those other characters doing like global and whatever level they want to do, but they're like, and what pissed me off the most about the Netflix movies or the Netflix series at no point there's ever any reference to the Battle of New York. And I'm like, fucking A. Sorry, you guys were there. You're the New York people. Like, you're the New York, like the Brooklyn crew. And there's like, this happens in Manhattan, over the bridge, less than 20 miles away. And at some point, you got to have seen, holy crap, that was a Chitauri warship that just went down. Some reference to it. Nothing big, just an acknowledgement of what happened is all I'm asking for. You know?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you think about it too, though, I mean, Marvel itself has run into issues with trying to have this cohesive universe as well, as did DC for the comics. That's why they had all these massive reset things, Secret Wars, um, and they had like 3 or 4 different ones of those. Then they had Crisis of Infinite Earths for DC and all this stuff, because they get into the point where they have so many properties and so many books out there that it's hard to keep sort of that some sort of sense of commonality between them, because of exactly what you pointed out is you have these, all this stuff's happening concurrently, but there's really no mention of one to the other, and they're basically treated separately, and then somehow they have to incorporate them together later, which again sort of blows up, and then you
I
have
mean,
multiverse to
something
quote
I can
resolve it.
yeah, something I can bring up here that coincidentally ties into this is that there's a story here which is on comicbookmovie.com, and it says 2 rumored lead characters may come as a surprise. And it says here Kevin Feige is considering bringing back the likes of Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson in an attempt to reignite fan interest in the franchise. And it's like, well, yeah, they're lead characters that people got used to. But then it says here, and even if they don't do that, it then says here, like if they had Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman come in again, that would work. You need lead characters. You can't. No one knew. I guess Iron Man wasn't a super well known character. I didn't really know who Iron Man was before that film, but because it kicked it all off and it was a good movie and it got people's interest. Then it was like, well, yeah, but you've heard of the Incredible Hulk, and you may not really know tons about Captain America and Thor, but everyone's heard of them. And it's like, and they're all together, and they're this team, and they're the Avengers, and they were all good films, and so it became this thing, and they could build upon it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was Marvel using all of the characters that no one had bought. The characters that everyone was interested in was Spider-Man and Wolverine, the X-Men, and so you've got them now. Use them. That genuinely will fix things. Bring back Robert Downey Jr., bring back Scarlett Johansson. Thor is still in play. Hulk is still in play. Put Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland as well. But who are the headlining acts? Who's your main characters? It's Spider-Man. It's Wolverine. It's Iron Man. It's Captain America. But instead, if everyone's like, "Oh yeah, have you seen Moon Knight?" There's like, "What's that?" Have you heard? Shang-Chi. It's like, I don't know that character. It's like the Eternals. Well, how many of them are there? It's like, oh, there's like 17 new characters to learn. It's like, I give up.
Yeah. Well, I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. What they need to do is have build to a big movie where the multiverse gets shut down, and people, and at the end of it, people who don't belong in this universe are trapped here. People who don't belong in the other one get trapped there. But whoever you end up with in this universe, that's who you build the next films on. Maybe, and you could, I don't think you should do it anymore, but let's say we bring in Hugh Jackman to play Wolverine some more. We bring in maybe Tom Holland Spider-Man gets trapped, and Tobey Maguire is our universe's Spider-Man for a while.
What about Andrew Garfield? Are we going to talk anything about that guy?
No, we're not talking about him.
I think Andrew Garfield absolutely stole the show in No Way Home. I thought he completely redeemed himself. I thought he was the best Spider-Man in that.
here's my one beef with Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. Can we not talk about Spider-Man 3 ever? Because I don't ever want to see that guy do the stupid dance.
I love the dance.
Yeah.
Also, like so I've said this before as well. When they had the 3 Spider-Men together, and like Tobey Maguire was like this and shot jizz out of his arm, and they're like, "Whoa, how'd you do that?" And I, to me, I was like, "Well, that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense that this guy gets powers that he can climb up walls, and he can also create spider web. He could have done that before he had powers. It completely makes sense that he could do it. And in their variant storyline, it's just that their instincts, their spidey sense, told them they need to create webs. And so, because they're geniuses, they did it mechanically. But what they didn't realize, which Tobey Maguire had as an instinct, is that they probably can all do it naturally. But he's the only one that's discovered that ability part of it yet.
So
I think they can all do
Tobey
it.
Maguire is smarter than both Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland? Because I will totally buy that argument.
Well, no, that wasn't what I was saying. But what I was saying is, like, if it just happened naturally for him, I think the others probably can do it as a natural ability, but they just haven't made that discovery yet.
I think at least one of them, it should come out of their butt.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, like a real spider.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So, did anyone else see So, on another group I am on a certain website that we don't talk about, I saw a picture of a Gargoyles movie. Like
Wait,
live action. Yeah, CGI live action.
What website are you not talking about? A
I
gargoyle
cannot
porn
talk
movie.
about social media websites. I was going to talk about X. Yeah. Somebody sent me a picture of the Gargoyles poster for the live action Gargoyles, and I'm like, that looks awesome. And I see Gerald's background, and I'm like, yeah.
Well, is that for real or is it just a rumor?
I don't know. Has anyone else heard this?
I've heard that they're working on
trying to
something,
find it.
but I don't know beyond that. And I think it's supposed to be like a mix of CGI live action.
Because I mean, there's so much stuff is just rumor now.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I cannot describe how much I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, it was like my favorite reason to blow off class and watch it.
It was a good show. I mean, if they could do it right, I think it could be a good movie.
Hold on 1 second, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's mostly speculation. So this says live action Gargoyle show is in development at Disney Plus.
And so much is getting delayed right now. You know, like
yeah.
Deadpool 3 is delayed. I think
well, Disney is having a heck of a time. There was an article I read that said that they, in India in particular, they basically aren't doing well with their Disney Plus thing, so they're actually selling it off. I don't know exactly how that works. And they've talked about like basically licensing out shows instead of having their own platform because it's just not quite working. But then they own, like in the US, they own like 2/3 or 3/4 of Hulu. So they've got a lot of money invested.
More like 4/5 of Hulu, I think is one.
Okay.
It's like 80% of Hulu.
Yeah.
We don't ever hardly watch Disney Plus.
I watch Disney Plus because I love Disney movies. And I'm very upset that they will never put my favorite Disney movie on Disney Plus.
Which is?
What is it? The one that got censored.
Oh, Song of the South?
Thank you.
No, you'll never see that on there.
No.
Yeah.
Because Disney was like, we never did this. We're not this piece of shit.
And that's such a famous song as well, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Also, which is why they're changing Splash Mountain in Disney World.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so a couple of things I can say about like Disney, especially like what you're saying about India. So from what I've heard is that they had the rights to the cricket or something like this. And and then they lost the rights, so that was basically where they got all of their money for Disney Plus India.
The cricket.
And yeah, they show sports. Like I think in some parts of the world, Disney actually showed WWE, which is wild to me. But
wow,
yeah, it's just a licensing thing. Like starting today, in fact, in the United States, there's all of the Doctor Who's on Disney Plus, but in the UK, we don't get them on Disney, which kind of sucks because it's a BBC show, and so it's on BBC iPlayer, which we get here anyway. But it would have been nice if it was all in one place on Disney.
So, David, I've been meaning to message you about Doctor Who. I know you're a big fan. I just started watching it, and I found out something that I'm like, this can't be true.
Okay, go on.
That Jack Harkness is the face of Bo.
Well, do you want the spoiler or not?
Go ahead.
Yes, Jack Harkness is the face of Bo, but it's a kind of throwaway like story element. If you guys don't know it, there is like a big giant head, not to be confused with the thing from Third Rock from the Sun, and it is just like a ginormous face, and it sort of gives like wise predictions of the future and stuff like this.
Is it that stretched out thing?
It's not the stretched out one, but it's in a similar episode. It's in the same episode. Like the stretched out skin face is a different story, but I think the face of Bo appears in the same thing. And then you get the character Captain Jack Harkness, who, because of something that happens in the storyline, is basically immortal. And he when he'll get killed, but then he'll gasp and he'll be back alive again. And in at the end of the third season, they say something about, oh, I was this at the Bo Academy. That's why they called me the face of Bo. And when he says that, the doctor and his assistant look at each other like, no way, it can't be that, because he's immortal. Eventually, he'll become the face of Bo. And that's what they went for, but it never becomes anything more meaningful than that.
My favorite line from the David Tennant Doctor Who is he is arguing with some aliens who are thinking about destroying the Earth, and he then says, "From the day they arrived on the planet, and blinking stepped into the sun." Wait a minute, that's the Lion King. Never mind.
Yeah, no, there's good stuff. Okay, so one of the things though, and this was I mentioned earlier that ties into some of the stuff that we were saying earlier about like Captain America and that, is something new that they've launched, because with Disney being involved, because they're funding a lot of the production of Doctor Who now, they have there's a new show called Whoniverse, because everything has to have a cinematic universe now. And Whoniverse started, and it brings back the 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctor, and they're like 30, 40 years older from when they last played the character properly. And they're in like new adventures. And when I say that, I watched one of them today, and it's a bit disappointing. It is kind of just like a new introduction, and then they say, oh, well, this problem that we've got to solve needs memories. And then they just start describing an old story, and it then shows an old episode. Oh. But I've said for years, with Doctor Who more than anything, because with the MCU, like we were saying about Captain America, for them to put out a movie about like some lost chapter that we didn't see, it's not going to affect anything going forward. But with Doctor Who, for the most part, each episode is a standalone thing. And I've said for years, if you've got all of the past Doctors, there is no reason, and think of the money they could generate if they just kept, they say, oh, here's the new Doctor, it's the 10th Doctor or the 11th Doctor. Keep filming stuff with the 7th Doctor, because in 20 years' time, people are going to go crazy wanting to see it.
Yep.
That's, and so they finally had this idea, but they're so like old now, and they don't look like the Doctor anymore. But they kind of just ignore. They don't even explain, oh, well, you look old, and then they just move on and accept it. But it is just them rehashing old storylines, and it's like you could keep making new adventures with these actors, and people would, go crazy to see it, because there's literally been hundreds of episodes of Doctor Who. But Anyway, I know none of you are big Doctor Who guys, so
No, but
like I said, I just started watching it and I really enjoy it.
it's really good.
No.
It's really good for a while, then it gets kind of bad in the last couple of seasons. But the new ones are about to begin with the 14th Doctor and then the 15th Doctor. And so that'll be very exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to butcher this and you're going to laugh at me, but the Doctor Who I started watching was, I believe, I'm trying to look it up online here, Tom Baker. Was he the one pretty much in the 80s? Yeah. And I just haven't, I haven't seen really much of it since then.
Well, see, here's the thing. I watched, like, growing up, I watched Doctor Who, and like my era for when I started watching was the 7th Doctor, which was a very specific time period right before the show got cancelled. And then it got cancelled, I think, in 1987 or 1989. I think 89. And then it came back in 1996 for one episode, where it was a TV movie, and then they didn't make it into a season. And then they brought it back in 2005. And whilst I'd seen old repeats on television, like reruns of stuff here and there, when they brought back the show in 2005, it was like, it's a continuation of what came before, but we're going to treat our audience 99% as if this is a brand new show. So everything that has happened before, we're going to explain it so that people understand it. Otherwise, no one's going to understand it. And they were super smart about that. But then they discovered that lots of people were old fans, or even the new fans would be excited to. Oh, Marty's had enough, right? Or they would be excited.
Guys, I'm out.
Yeah. Or they would be excited and then go and research the classic stuff. Oh, hang on, here comes Marty again. Right? They would be excited and like learn about the old stuff, so they would start incorporating more and more of the mythology into it. And that is where I think a lot of these things go wrong. The longer things go on, you hit a sweet spot where references are cool, and then they take it too far. And I can give a bunch of examples straight off. One is Doctor Who, that, like I said, when it first came back, they assumed that no one knew anything about the past. And within 3 or 4 years, there was loads of references peppered through, and it was like, oh, wow, this is really rich and engrossing. But then as it went on, the references became more and more obscure. And also it'd be referencing what happened 2 years earlier and stuff. And so there was a lot of baggage to be able to follow it. When you watch sitcoms, 1 second, sorry, if I could just say this point, then I'll jump straight back to you. When you watch sitcoms, the same thing happened on The Big Bang Theory, and it happened on Friends. When it first started, they were funny, and then it was like, oh, you start to get to know the characters, and that's the catchphrase, and then in the end, they end up being a parody of what's happened with the references that, if you just watch the later episodes of Friends, and that was the first episode you saw, you wouldn't get half the jokes because it relied on what happened. And The Big Bang Theory is worse for it. And that's what's happened in particular with Marvel, where everything happening in the MCU, it's like the thing that people are talking about a lot at the moment with the Marvels coming out. You need to have watched Captain Marvel. You probably need to watch you need to have watched Infinity War and Endgame just to get what happened with the blip. So then you understand that Monica Rambeau disappeared and then she came back. Then you need to have watched WandaVision, and from what I understand, Secret Invasion, and you needed to see Ms. Marvel. And it's like, you have to watch all of that just to watch this one movie. It's too much.
Just overwhelming. Yep.
It's overwhelming. But yeah, go ahead, whoever was going to jump in. I apologize.
What I was going to say was, going to Doctor Who, when I was dating one of the girls I dated for a long time, we started watching the first season of Eccleston, the whole Bad Wolf saga. And then a couple of months later, we stopped watching it, and I rewatched the Bad Wolf saga again, and I actually noticed that there's a bunch of Bad Wolves in the background, because I was like, oh my God, I'm now looking for these clues.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know they were there. And I'm like, that was really cool.
and but like when that happens, like when it gets to the end of that storyline,
Right.
it sort of says, "Oh, Bad Wolf, we've seen this here, there, and everywhere," and they show all these old flashbacks, and you're
Right.
like, "Oh wow, I'm gonna have to watch this again." Whereas with so many things, what happens nowadays is if you have like you got to the end of that, and if you didn't pick up on any of these things, it didn't matter because they were like, "Hey, here's the important things, and we're going to show you them again." Whereas on so many things, even Doctor Who nowadays, it's like, well, you're only going to get this if you've seen these other 17 things.
Right.
It's almost like a rite of passage or something where you basically are you a true fan and you can reference this, or are you you're just trying to get it on the hype type thing, which to me is just ridiculous. And it also has the feeling of like Family Guy, where that they're always making those pop culture references and stuff to the point where it just gets absolutely insane. And it's like it's funny to a degree, but again, you just take it too far, and it makes the point of entry too much for time and everything else, especially with all the other things that can vie for our attention.
The other thing I don't like about Doctor Who is like, and this is, I know it's not required watching, but like there's Sarah Jane Chronicles and Torchwood and K9 stories or whatever the hell it's called, and I'm like, I'll probably watch them because I watched Torchwood and I really liked it. I watched Sarah Jane's Chronicles and I'm like, I don't like this character. So
It's Sarah Jane Adventures. You're thinking of the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yes.
Everyone does that.
Yeah. Well, Chronicles is more to do with time. So
I think that was a better
name.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Like the good thing is there's only 1 or 2 episodes which has a character from the Sarah Jane Adventures where you might be like, oh, who's that? And if you didn't watch Sarah Jane, then it wouldn't honestly matter. It would just be like, okay, so she's got a son now or something like this. Torchwood does have a little bit more where it ties back into Doctor Who, but they do a very good job at making it so that you know what you need to when you're watching Doctor Who. Because Torchwood, and this is so weird that they did it, if you haven't seen it, it's a show targeted for adults with swearing and violence and murder and sex and all this kind of stuff in it. And yet it's set within the world of Doctor Who. And in Doctor Who, even though probably mostly it is adults that watch it nowadays, it was it was originally targeted as like a show for children or young people. And so you had Doctor Who running and then Torchwood running like late night. And it's like, these are 2 shows that influence each other, but one show shouldn't be watched by the main demographic for Doctor Who. And so, again, that's just where they complicated things. But it'll be interesting just because if you haven't seen up to the stuff with the 13th Doctor with Jodie Whittaker, things got so bad there, and it's such a shame just because I thought Jodie Whittaker's portrayal of the Doctor was good. She played it in a very upbeat way, similar in vibe to David Tennant and Matt Smith. It felt like the same kind of, it felt like a continuation of that character's personality. But the storylines made no sense. And from what I understand, they are literally just moving on. They're not going to try and explain so many of the storylines they put, which literally damaged and ruined the canon that had been established for like 50 years at that point. Like they did so much harm to the backstory. And it's like, so to be able to understand Doctor Who now became so confusing because literally, even though they never get called it on screen, everyone knows the first Doctor, the 10th Doctor, and you understand the order. But without it being a massive spoiler, that whole numbering system is now meaningless. And to try to understand how many different variants of the Doctor and stuff like this there have been, I think I made a video, but I definitely wrote an article on it. And there's literally been about 50 different Doctors now, because of the craziness that they've done in the storylines.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until you were just talking about that Doctor Who was gone for like 20 years or longer.
Yes.
That's mind-boggling to me.
Like, yes and no. So, like, from 1989, it came back in 1996 for one
Which
TV
is 16
movie.
years.
Yeah. Well, for 89 to 96, but then it came back in 2005.
Right.
So, yeah, so like 16 years then. Along the way, in like 1993, there was I don't know if you know what this is. We have like a charity thing that comes on once or twice a year, like Red Nose Day. We call one Comic Relief. I'm sure you have a version of Comic Relief out there.
Telethons type thing or something.
Yeah, telethon, absolutely. And they did like a Doctor Who special. And then in 1999, they did a Doctor Who special. And here's where some of the waters get muddied. In this Doctor Who special they did in 1999, they had the Doctor keep dying and regenerating. And variants of the Doctor included Rowan Atkinson. So Mr. Bean was a version of the Doctor. Hugh Grant was a version of the Doctor. Richard E. Grant was a version of the Doctor. Then the first woman to play it, Joanna Lumley, was a version of the Doctor. And everyone said, oh, that doesn't count. But then the storylines that they then did later on kind of meant like, oh, actually, that probably does count now. So the numbering of the Doctors completely thrown off. And then they brought back for like what would have been probably the 40th anniversary of Doctor Who. They did a couple of like animated episodes where the same person, Richard E. Grant, who played old Loki in the first season of Loki, if you remember who that is. Richard E. Grant played the animated version of the Doctor, who was announced by the BBC of being the official 9th Doctor, even though he'd played a version of the Doctor in this charity special a few years earlier. And then they said that Christopher Eccleston, no, because it was going back live action, they're like, no, he's the actual 9th Doctor. And then a storyline, which is slight spoiler if you haven't got to it, they had John Hurt come in to play a Doctor that existed but was a secret between the 8th and 9th Doctor. So technically he was the 9th Doctor. And at this point, it's like, this is really confusing. And then, like, people could just about hang on to a thread of it then. But then during the Jodie Whittaker era, there's like 50 Doctors now. It's jumped the shark, basically.
And I guess the other thing, I thought that I don't know much about the mythos, but I thought there was like only one Doctor at a time. But that's not necessarily the case because since they time travel or something.
Well, yeah. So this is the best thing they ever came up with in Doctor Who. The best storyline, best episode for me is an episode called Blink, which is the one with the Weeping Angels.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But
Blink is so good.
But not only is that like the best villain that they've come up with since the Cybermen and the Daleks and stuff like this, but they came up with the concept in it that there was this message being sent through time to this random individual who is just a civilian. And with the Doctor sending this message through time, when the character questions, well, how can this work? The Doctor just goes, well, it's a bunch of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. And the amount of times that gets referenced in stuff, because it is the all-purpose explanation for whenever there's like continuity errors or why does time change and stuff like this, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. And then it's definitely come up in other things, and I think it came up in Loki as well. But Doctor Who, long before Loki, spoke about fixed points in time. So time can change, everything's in flux, but there are certain things that always have to stand. And if someone tries to change these, then it might destroy the universe, and that's why they have to
do that in the episode where Rose Tyler wants her father to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it's like a Nexus event in Marvel. That's
the term. Well done, Nex. Yeah, Nexus event.
Do I get another point for?
Yeah, do you know, I haven't really been scoring too many points. Guys, I don't know how long, let's take this off of Doctor Who. Is there anything else you guys have seen or want to react to and stuff? Just because we can wrap this up sooner rather than later. Just because it's like 11:30 at night for me.
Yes, that's late.
It is. But, is there anything else you guys have seen?
Nothing
Well,
recent.
coming back to Doctor Who. No, okay, go on.
I went back and I watched the first Candyman movie because I had never seen it before. So
Oh,
from
wow.
like the
original.
mid '90s, yeah, it was okay. I expected something very different than it was, and I see that there is a lot more potential there than they ended up having for it. I've not seen the spin-off and then the remake that was done a handful of years ago either, but the mythos of it's sort of interesting. But again, it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I tried
Yeah.
to watch the new Haunted Mansion movie.
it was okay.
I don't
The
like
better-
scary movies, so it was like, and I'm a big Disney fan. And I love the Haunted Mansion ride, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be based on the ride, and it was, and I'm like, okay, great.
The
Nothing
best,
to do
the
with that movie is, I'm happy I watched it. It was an enjoyable way to spend a couple hours on a rainy day, but that's about it.
the best Haunted Mansion movie is the Muppets Haunted Mansion movie.
Yes, but
I
that's
need to
more of a
watch that. I
Muppets movie than a
started
Haunted
watching it. I
Mansion
need to
movie.
watch it.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
It's
it's just, I mean, it's just
good.
sort of fun with the Muppets and stuff. So
One thing I saw, which I don't know if it's on Disney or if in the States it'd be on Hulu or whatever, but there's like a new, I think it's new, maybe it's older than I realized, but there's like a show called Goosebumps, which is based
Yes.
on the old book.
It
But this
just
is
came
like,
out.
it's targeted more towards, I guess, teens or adults. You know, the language in it is more adult, the violence in it is more adult. Seems pretty good so far. I've only seen the first couple of episodes, but I like that they've kind of, I think it'll appeal to people who read the books 10 or 20 years ago, but they've kind of aged it up, which is, you know, often what seems to happen these days.
I didn't know whether to watch it or not.
I think it's all right. It's not the greatest thing, but it's decent.
This year I've really, probably more than this year, but this year really, I've lamented the lack of any decent new horror movies.
New horror movies.
Yeah, there just aren't any good new horror movies.
Did you see? I think it was from the end of last year, but did you see Smile?
No,
I didn't care for it
because I've heard that it's just more of the same kind of stuff.
I won't give spoilers about it. I like the concept of it more than I actually liked it. And when I watched it, again without giving spoilers, I didn't quite understand what what it developed into. Like the last half an hour of the film, I was kind of scratching my head. But maybe a second watch would change things. But I just think the idea of like, I love it. Again, this comes back to Doctor Who. The weeping angels don't blink. It's such a simple idea. If you blink, then something bad can happen. And it's like, well, how can you cope with blinking and stuff like this? Doctor Who have got other ones where it's like, oh, someone's got two shadows, and one of the shadows means something bad. The idea of you see someone and they're just permanently smiling, or like that movie It Follows, where someone's just going to keep walking towards you. I love these simple ideas, and the idea that when someone's got that smile on their face, you know it means trouble and stuff like that. I love that idea, and they made the smile so creepy. But again, like check out the film, what it ended up developing into. Yeah, I didn't especially care for myself, but the concept I thought was okay.
Yeah, that's been my experience with most new horror movies that I watch. There's an idea there that could have been better, and it just never pays off.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I don't know. It's just they don't know how to end a movie.
Yeah.
Did you happen to check out that little short I sent on the chat thing? It's called something like Something in the Box or something. It's only like maybe 5-10 minutes long, but it is pretty stinking creepy. It was from a couple of years ago, but it's on YouTube.
No, I didn't. I think I got bogged down in life and just never did watch it.
No, I don't think I've
It's
seen
the other side
either.
of the box. Yeah, the other side of the box. That's what it's called. It
Oh,
is
wow.
creepy as hell. At least it was to me.
I would say
You know what?
heebie-jeebies.
I would say the best new horror-ish movie I've seen lately was No One Can Save You.
I don't
That was
know
a good one. I did like that one.
had a weird ending, but for the most part, I think I really enjoyed it. But beyond that, everything I watch of recent, lately is just very disappointing. To the point where I can't even remember what I've watched because it's just not memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, what did I see recently? With Russell Crowe in it. What was that? It was
The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh my god!
Oh.
Right, have you seen that?
Yes. Oh.
It's I didn't know it was it trying to be like it's got like these two preachers. It's like at the end of it, it's big spoiler, but whatever. They're like, we need to go out there and take care of the rest of the trash in the world. And it was just like the rest of the trash team. It was like it was like the ending of an 80s action film. And it was like and there's a boy in it who's possessed. And it was like in Superman 4, A Quest for Peace, when Nuclear Man has got the voiceover of Gene Hackman being like, destroy Superman. Like, you see this child and he's possessed. And it's like, well, why does he have a different voice? His vocal cords are still the same. There's a ghoul in him. But instead he was like, I'm going to kill you all. And it's like, you're a 7-year-old child. This voice makes no sense. It's really badly dubbed.
They're all like that. But it's like, okay, here's a new movie, and the exorcists are the superheroes. We're gonna call it the Exorcist.
And also, like, what was that like years ago? Like the exorcism of Emily Rose, and then always like the exorcism of whoever, right? And it'll always come up based on a true story. It's like, no, it's not, you assholes.
I will tell you one that's very creepy. That I can't even remember how long ago. It's probably came out 10 years ago, but it's called The Last Exorcism.
Ooh.
And it's creepy. It's very creepy.
For horror films, I generally don't like. I don't really like exorcism stuff. I don't really like ghost stuff. The reason I don't like most ghost stuff, and there is some good stuff, is because ghost stuff cheats. There'll be like something happening down the hall. They'll run. They'll slam the door. They'll turn around and it'll be right there, and it's like, that's cheating. It's so cheap. It's
but that's also like the Doctor Who trope and a Scooby Doo trope.
Yeah, like it's just like so. But like, if you get like a monster thing, like a creature feature or whatever, if you get like, and some other films cheat as well, but if you get like Michael Myers and he's walking in the background, he can't suddenly be in this room instantly. He can't teleport. If you get like the movie The Thing or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's like, oh, you don't know who to trust and stuff like this. Those, I think, are scary horror films. But where it's just literally, oh, well, anything can be a ghost. You know, the ghost can appear anywhere. Right at the end, someone's just going to suddenly turn around. It's like the Michael Jackson music video, and it turns out they're the monster for no reason, you know.
Well, that's why I don't really generally like haunted house movies, because they've just gotten to be such a hokey trope. There's a haunted house version of everything now. Whether it's a movie or a book or something. There's even a book about a haunted IKEA.
Yes, horror store.
Which I read, and it was so terrible. It was so.
Oh, it is.
It was
Does anyone have the book in paperback? I will pay shipping. I'm not going to pay for the actual book. Does anyone to ship me the book?
But
I will pay the shipping.
Gerald, were you the one telling me that you watched? Did you watch The Deep House?
Yeah.
How is that one?
I liked it okay. I mean, it does have a lot of the sort of same old horror tropes.
It's a haunted house underwater.
Yeah, basically.
Deep Horizon, that's a haunted house in space.
Wow.
There's a haunted house in everything. I mean, I think if you think of something, there's probably a movie for it. Old Showbiz Pizza, haunted Showbiz Pizza. You've got Willy's Wonderland and Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yep.
I mean, technically, Willy Wonka's a horror movie. If you really think about it, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory could be a horror movie.
Oh, the first one is a horror movie.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That whole That boat.
The
sequence?
second one is a horror movie, guys. The second one was a horror
Well, it's for
movie.
a different reason.
Yeah,
Did you say horror movie?
a horror movie. Yeah,
Horror movie.
A
Yeah.
horror movie.
yeah.
No,
Like,
but
what was I about to
when
say?
they're in the boat going through the tunnel, that is a
Yeah,
horror.
I hate the fact
Yeah.
they just show a chicken get decapitated. I don't like stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a children's movie.
Yeah. But you know, okay, so something that I don't like is obviously it's done to death, and I won't give spoilers for what this is, but where it turns out that the character you're seeing, they're already dead and they're ghosts and stuff like that. That's been done like over and over again. And I won't name it, but I'll give an example of something without saying what it is, and that way, hopefully, you guys won't know. I saw something recently where the twist at the end is a character you've been seeing the whole time is a ghost. And basically, when I made this discovery at the end of what I was watching, I was like, you've just sacrificed this entire story just so it can have this reveal. Because as you were watching everything else, because this character themselves didn't even know they were a ghost, nothing ghostly was actually happening. It was all like everything was just, oh, this is a ghost story. And so it was done stuff to make it seem creepy, but nothing was genuinely happening in the actual plot that you were watching. Because everything that they were referring to were things that had happened that the person who was a ghost wouldn't have known, what wasn't doing consciously, because they didn't know they were a ghost. And so everything that was happening was just like, you're waiting for something to happen, and it was all just tension that never actually built to anything because the ghost wasn't intentionally doing anything ghostly. And so when you found that out, it was just like, oh, this whole time. But it's like, well, when you then think about it, nothing actually happened in this plot. And, you know, again, I won't give the spoiler for anyone watching, but every film where it turns out that they're a ghost at the end, when you rewatch it, you might be like, oh, so that's how that makes sense, that they didn't touch things or there wasn't a reflection or whatever. But genuinely, the plots of these things are fake tension. It's kind of like nothing happens throughout all of them.
Yeah, one of the movies. So, like overall, I like M. Night Shyamalan's movies, but there's always something that annoys me at him. And the one that I point to right off the bat is Signs. No, not Signs. The Village. The Village.
Oh yeah,
because he outright lies to the audience. Because like early on, you think that it's out in the middle of the woods and it's like, you know, in the 1800s or something, and they even have tombstones that say like died 18 whatever. I mean, they flat out lie to you. There's no way in hell you can figure out what the twist is because they outright lie to you.
But now, okay, this either makes me weird or just smarter than everybody. I knew the twist when I saw the commercial.
Oh wow!
I said they're in modern times.
Yeah.
How did you know that?
Because M. Night Shyamalan's
your sixth sense told you.
And yes, my sixth sense told
you. Saw the signs.
I saw the signs, and then the lady in the water came in.
Yeah, and you were like, "What's happening?" Have you seen Knock at the Cabin?
No, my wife told me not to. She watched it on a plane, and she said it was just terrible. Yeah. I read the book, and the book sucked. You know what? I've read 2 or 3 of this guy's books. This author, whoever wrote this, the Cabin at the End of the Wood, or the End of the World. I've read 3 or 4 of his books, and he's like praised as one of the greatest horror writers in the world. Nothing happens in his books. Absolutely nothing.
Who is this?
I forget his name. Tremblay, I think.
Tremblay, yeah, Tremblay.
I'm like,
he's considered a pretty solid horror writer too.
I know. I'm fixing to write a book where nothing happens and just say, "Here's my
book." The one I will say, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it came out a couple years ago. The Ritual on Netflix.
I saw that. I liked it.
And the author of that one, his name I believe is Adam Neville, and I think he's British or Irish. Sorry for not knowing which one specifically, but he's from Greater Britain-ish. And his stuff's really good, and he has some short stories which are just truly unsettling. But I recommend his stuff. He's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's I don't know. You know, there've been some. Like I saw one a while back. I forget what it was called, but it ended up being about Wendigos, which is I saw the
Antlers.
Antlers. Yeah, I
Yep.
saw the poster and I went, oh, that's about Wendigos.
Yep.
And I watched it and boom, that's what it was about.
It was okay. It could have definitely been way better. It was
Yeah.
based on a short story, and the short story was pretty unsettling.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh gosh,
And that the
what?
Cabin in the Woods one, or the one you were asking about or mentioning, was that the one that had the guy that plays Drax?
Yeah, it's got Dave in it.
I thought it was okay. I
thought some of it was okay, but as with a lot of the Shyamalan films, I felt like it kind of petered out towards the end.
Shyamalan Ding Dong?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So I guess one of his kids, I think it's his daughter, is now doing movies, and she's directing something. I can't remember the name of it, but it looks like it has promise, but time will tell.
Wow.
Did you see Old?
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't like Old.
Okay,
so
I watched it. I didn't bother because anything
it's
with
disappointing.
Anything with Shyamalan Ding Dong's name on it, I don't usually watch now.
It was based on a comic book or graphic novel, and he completely changed the ending. And to me, the ending is extremely disappointing for the movie. The first half of it I thought was pretty good, but it falls apart.
Yeah,
it's like it feels like. I think if he was to take a stab to be involved with, maybe not in charge of, like the Twilight Zone, where there's all these high concept things. Like if he was like, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of ideas, or if you'd got all of his films and reworked them into being new versions of them for like the Twilight Zone, there's like good concepts there that would be good, but I don't know that any of them quite justify a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't they give Twilight Zone to Jordan Peele the last time?
Yeah, I thought that was hit and miss, and it ended up becoming more miss than hit for me.
Because I didn't watch any of those.
Some of it was good. There was, again, this isn't a massive spoiler, but there was like a episode that was like a twisted version of like Groundhog Day kind of thing. They did their version of the monster on the side of the plane, but they did something completely different with it, and it was terrible. They just like the change was a bad change. They just did something different with that concept, and it wasn't good. There are some episodes that were really good, but a lot of them weren't, and I think it got cancelled after 2 seasons.
I think anthology shows are very hit and miss, and usually more miss. Like even Guillermo del Toro's, his anthology show on Netflix was more miss than hit. I think there were 1 or 2 that I really liked, and then the rest I was like, I didn't.
I like anthology stuff. Like I've a few years ago, I directed a few short films, and basically it was an anthology series. And like if to look back at them now, it's like the budget was next to zero and stuff like that. But I'd love to redevelop them because I love high concept stuff where it's like, I can do this one story, doesn't need to impact or come back onto anything else, and you can tell some cool stories. But if what I think happens is they're like, oh, we need to make 18 episodes for this season. What have we got? These are the good ones. Let's just put some filler in, and the filler ones end up killing off the show.
Yeah. I don't know. There's nothing new under the sun, like that, like it says in the Bible. But I still wish somebody would do something unique and cool with the horror genre. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that can. I'm looking forward to it whenever it happens. It needs to be shook up. I mean, even for a while they were looking at this Jason Blum guy or
Blumhouse. Yep.
To be the savior of horror, but most of the Blumhouse films I've seen lately have not been very good.
I liked Ready or Not. I thought it was decent. And I think he did was it Happy Death Day or something? And I thought the first one was decent.
Was that like Groundhog Day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Happy Death Day was good. I enjoyed that, and I liked Ready or Not. And have you seen?
But it's probably been about half or so of them have been. Yeah.
Have you seen what's it? Oh, there's one that's kind of like Ready or Not. Is it called Hunted? Or
Was that the one? Yeah, that one was okay.
it's
But
got Hilary Swank in it.
oh no, that's a different one. I was thinking of a different one.
Guys, on this note, I will wrap this show up. Just because
it's only midnight.
Yeah, it's midnight, guys.
Well, Nick got bored and just left.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He said, "Oh, we're not going to talk about Doctor Who anymore. I'm out."
It happens to the best of us. Right. So this was good. I'm glad that we got Geek Battle back. Like, depending what people say, who knows? We could even do this again tomorrow. Or if not, then I'll just do something else. Right. So anyway, there's lots of shows there on the Extreme Improv Extremes channels, guys. Check them all out. Gerald, where can the people find you?
At Instagram, Gerald Geek.
Awesome. Marty.
On Instagram, you can find me at What Would Jesus Glue, and here on Extreme, hopefully I won't lose my voice again.
Awesome stuff. My name is David Pistansky. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David Pistansky. And with that, from me, from everyone else, I am going to remember to stop this show. Stay safe, always stay extreme, live long and prosper. Ciao for now.